Today we are going to speak majority in the plenary session in English language, but my colleague will give you a short note in Lithuanian as well. So Rytis, what is the conference and what are the main topics of it?
Tai būtent konferencija yra, jos pavadinimas yra Regionas, Istorija, Kultūra ir Kalba. Trys esminės dedamosios, tai būtent plenarinėje sesijoje turėsime 4 pranešėjus. Taip pat vėliau bus darbas sekcijose nuo 13 valandos ir prieš tai diskusija.
Would like to welcome our director of Vilnius University Šiauliai Academy, Professor Dr. Renata Bilbokaitė, who is participating here in the room. So, Professor, the floor is yours.
Good morning for everyone, especially for those who doesn't know our beautiful Lithuanian language. I'm really happy because we have a traditional conference and we are special people because we live in the region and we really take care every day about various things that are connected to regions. Music, culture, history, archaeology, ecology, languages, dialectics, I don't know, many things. And we feel it with our emotions, by our conscience, because we are here. And we know very much it is important to save our cultural heritage. And much more important is to say to the capital cities, to the big countries, that it is important to save and to explore and to research everything that is connected with the regions. So thank you very much for organizers for this event, for a daily life routine, because it's very difficult also to organize every year, to think, to attract people. And I thank you for those who participate here. We are creating the part of sustainability. And this is the main topic and idea. Sveiki visi, kurie gal ne visi kalbate lietuviškai. Labai džiaugiuosi, kad yra ši konferencija, tai yra tęstinė konferencija. Dėkoju mūsų organizatoriams. Minėjau anglų kalbą, kad mums labai svarbu, kad vyktų Šiaulių akademija, todėl kad esame geriausio universiteto padalinys, bet jis yra Šiauliuose. Ir mes išsaugojame savo tradicijas, savo mokslininkus ir savo mokslinės tyrimų tematikas ir labai džiaugiamės, kad nepasididžiuojate visi iš tų kitų miestų ir kitų šalių ir atvykstate prisidėti prie to tikrojo tvarumo kūrimo ir išsaugojimo. Mūsų darbais tyrinėjant regionui aktualius dalykus. Ačiū Jums labai ir linkiu gerų diskusijų ir dar daug kartų pas mus atvykti.
We would like warmly to thank to our director for this wonderful, inspiring speech about interdisciplinarity of this conference, as well as little but strong community in the regions, which would like to discuss the main topics of history, culture, language, political sciences, economy, and other many arts and many other issues which are combined in this interdisciplinary conference. And as director already mentioned, it's quite a long tradition of those conferences here in Vilnius University Šiauliai Academy. And I would like to ask my colleague, Rytis, to present the next person who will give the welcome speech.
The next person will be a chairperson of the conference scientific committee, associated professor, Dr. Regina Kvašytė.
Labą dieną, mėly konferencijos dalyviai. Labdien viesi no Latvijas, kuri ir piedalās šajā konferencē, gan attālināti, gan dzīvā veidā. Un man ir liels prieks jūs šodien sveikt šajā 13. konferencē. Man labai malonu pasveikinti jūs susirinkusi 13. konferencija. Tikiuosi, kad skaičius jūsų negazdina, nes šiaip jis yra gražus. Na ir kadangi konferencijos šio posėdžio kalba yra anglų kalba, tai pasistengsiu ir angliškai perskaityti trumpą pasveikinimo žodį. Dear speakers and listeners, I congratulate all the participants of the 13th International Interdisciplinary Scientific Conference, Region, History, Culture, Language. We are happy for those who came to Vilnius University Šiauliai Academy, as well as to who joined by Microsoft Teams. This year's conference program includes 45 presentations prepared by experienced researchers and early careers researchers, or doctoral students or PhD students from Lithuania and 8 foreign countries. 10 researchers from Latvian higher education and research institutions, University of Daugavpils, Faculty of History and Philosophy of the University of Latvia, Faculty of Humanities of the University of Latvia, as well as the Institute of the Latvian Language and Institute of Latvian History of the same university, Ethnographic Open Air Museum of Latvia. 3 from Poland, from Library of Lodz University, from Adam Mickiewicz University in Poznan, and Sedlc University of Natural and Human Sciences are participating. 2 speakers, each from Slovakia, University of Science Cyril and Methodius in Trnava, and Romania, University of Bucharest, 1 each from Hungary, Joseph Etvosh College from Baya, Pakistan, International Islamic University, Islamabad, the Republic of South Africa, University of Johannesburg, and USA, University of Michigan. Lithuanian higher education institutions and research institutes, General Jonas Žemaitis Military Academy, Institute of Lithuanian Language, Institute of Lithuanian Literature and Folklore, Institute of Lithuanian History, Klaipėda University, Vytautas Magnus University, Lithuanian University of Health Sciences, Kaunas College, Vilnius College, and Vilnius University Šiauliai Academy. At the beginning of his year's conference, I want to share some important and happy news. At the end of last year, we achieved the long-awaited result. 3 volumes of the journal Acta Humanitarica Academia Saulensis appeared. I would like to remind you that this is how we continue the series of research works of Šiauliai University, Acta Humanitarica Universitatis Saulensis. You can see this our scientific works collection. Now it is an electronic journal published by Vilnius University Publishing House. The first 3 issues are prepared from reports that have been read at regional conferences until 2023. The articles received after last year's conference are now being reviewed, and other works related to publishing are being carried out. We hope you won't have to wait long for this year's issues. And we will wait for the articles of this year's conference until November 1st. They must be submitted by authors in the journal online system journals VU-LT. All presenters will receive additional information at a later date. This year, the cultural program will be held at the Šiauliai Tourism Information Center. This time, we combined all three partners into one. An event from the cycle Lodz Center Talks in the Tourismus Center Hall, public lecture Ethnic Landmarks and Links at the Lithuanian Latvian Crossboard. Presenter Auksė Noreikaitė from Vytautas Magnus University. Participants will also be able to view the exhibition which Tourismus Center has agreed to continue for several days. Authorized Straw Gardens exhibition, variation of straw, created by Straw Gardens weaver, musicians and teacher, our Šiauliai University, Marija Žibudienė. We would like to thank for information sponsor Mokslo Lietuva, the newspaper of the Lithuanian Union of Scientists. I wish all for us a successful walk. Thank you.
So thank you once more for our colleague, dear Regina, who is making a huge work every year because she is organizing all the event and does the majority of the work to invite all of you to this room, to this conference, and provide us an opportunity to discuss all main issues. Dear colleagues, now we would like to move to presentations part, and this is why we are encouraging to unmute our colleague from Johannesburg University, Professor Daniel Meyer.
The first our presenter would be Professor Dr. Daniel Francois Meyer. It's from University of Johannesburg, South African Republic, and the topic is formulation and testing of an alternative regional competitiveness index, ARCI.
So, Professor, the floor is yours. We are waiting for your presentation.
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate it. I will just use the 20 minutes, so don't worry. And I hope the presentation will be interesting for you everywhere in the world, in Lithuania and other regions as been presented. Yeah, it's called the Alternative Regional Competitiveness Index, ARCI. And it is a work in progress, so it's not 100% completed. So hopefully I can get some nice inputs from everybody to improve the project. I am from the University of Johannesburg. This is one of the campuses of the university. I don't know who's been in South Africa, but this is one of the huge universities in South Africa with like 60,000 students. With 4 campuses. I work on this campus, which is the main campus in Auckland Park, Johannesburg. I am very far from you. If you are in Lithuania, you're sitting around about there, but I am in the southern point of Africa. I'm an African, and I am only 12,000 kilometers away from you. And we are going into our winter now, but we've got summer days of 27, 28 degrees. Which is fantastic with no clouds in the sky. My world in terms of research has to do with development of measurement tools and indexes. This is my crazy world. And these are like 20 of the indexes I've been developing over the last 10 years. And I would like to see how to measure things. We can say there's a good enabling environment, for example, created by government. But how do we measure that? So, for example, this number 5 is the enabling environment test, how to measure how well the environment is for business to be successful. And there's many other, the inclusive growth index that goes down on a local level as well as on national level. Various measurement tools that has been developed, even serious card games that we've done. And lately we are looking to develop a 4IR readiness index for local government, and also currently with one of my colleagues we're looking to develop an structural change index. Since COVID, many things has changed, and this is some of the work we currently do, but one of these are the competitiveness index that I'll present to you now. The world is turning faster and faster and changing very rapidly, but that is mostly because of a few rapidly developing regions in the world. And this is like a light show, a light map of the world where most of the activities are happening, and the regions indicated here represents 25% of global outputs, global GDP. This is the US with the Western and Eastern development areas. You've got the Brazilian node, you've got South African node there, you've got Europe, East and Western Europe, you've got the Middle East, you have got Asia. And these highlighted areas are creating 25% of all economic activities on a global scale, which is very interesting because these regions are driving economic development throughout the globe. And this is just the top 10 regions in the world that's contributing. So just to indicate, regions are driving. It's not national economies anymore. It's regions that's driving the global economy. But the number one rated one is the New York, Washington, Boston region, with nearly 50 million people living there. And they're contributing about 3.6% or $3.6 trillion of economic output. So it's 3.6% also of global output, which is very incredible. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of the world's fastest growing regions are still in the US. It's Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland region, Los Angeles, and then Dallas, Texas region, the Texas Triangle. In second place is the European node, Paris, Amsterdam, Brussels, and Munich. So that Netherlands, France, and Germany are contributing second most. And the upcoming ones is a few in Asia, like Seoul, Beijing, and Hong Kong, those areas. But these are the drivers of the world economy. It's regional development that's causing that. So why is this concept of regional competitiveness so important? We've seen the regions that's driving, but so what? Why do we do research, and why do we need to measure our own regions and compare with these fantastic global regions? And regional competitiveness is a key driver for economic development, innovation, and even social well-being. It's not only about economics here, it's also about social, cultural development. And the focus of policymakers is turning more and more towards competitiveness in terms of all aspects of a region. And we've seen that policymakers are moving more and more from national competitiveness to regional. And the facts were on the screen with those regions developing so rapidly across the world. And even across the world, everywhere, in South Africa, the EU, the US, governments are more and more showing interest in regional competitiveness rather than national. In South Africa, I was in a meeting recently at a district, regional municipality. They said they want to have a competitive and comparative advantage strategy, not an economic strategy, a competitive and comparative advantage strategy. And that is very important, that even on a rural level in South Africa, people are talking like that. Even at the OECD level for research, there is more and more focus on this in terms of the old concept of productivity and competition for investment. There's a lot of competition for investment on a global scale, and obviously new technology that is there. So the emphasis is now more and more on regional assets. There's a study that was done, regional resources versus capacity. And if you've got capacity and good resources, you've got a wonderful region with development potential. Let's go to the next one. And what is the definition of regional competitiveness? And it's mostly to do with a region that can generate higher income, more jobs and more income, and increase the quality of life of people. And that's basically economic development that we're talking about there. Various authors have looked at also the attract and maintenance of existing firms. So if you can attract more firms, if you can keep existing ones happy in your region, you will have a competitive region. And companies and investment gravitate to more positive environments. And environments in terms of positive economics, in terms of clean environment, good quality environment. You've got the old concept of push and pull factors that people come towards regions. Regional competitiveness is grounded in terms of theory in productivity. If you are more productive, you can create more with the same number of workers, you will have higher levels of competitiveness. Krugman in 1990 already said also that productivity is what it's all about. It's about the output per worker, and that will lead to economic development. It's old concept, like 34 years old already. The standards of living that needs to be improved. I'm not going to talk much about the theory, but there's huge theoretical history about competitiveness. It already started in 1776 with Adam Smith, and it continued through the decades and the centuries through Joseph Schumpeter. It included Robert Solow, and in the latest modern theories, it's Michael Porter, Romer and Krugman that talked about competitiveness of regions. One French theorist in the 1940s talked about the growth poles. And I think most of the things Porter talked about was taken from what Ferdinand Peru said about the growth poles. You get leading and lagging regions, and those leading regions are the ones that's got competitive advantage above the rest. There's two concepts about regional competitiveness. The first concept is the drivers of improved competitiveness. And these factors could include something like the level of human resources, the talent that a region has got. If you've got high levels of talented people that can be innovative, that can bring new ideas to the table, that will lead to competitiveness, but also the availability of production factors, including labor, capital, all of the normal economic production factors is really important. And then lastly, innovation. That some of the drivers, just examples of some of the drivers, just to show the difference between drivers and outcomes. The outcomes of regional competitiveness is the end product. That's the end product of a well-implemented competitiveness strategy that's implemented by regions. And we can look at the Californian region with all of its clusters there. That is really something that makes them much more competitive compared to other regions. But the outcomes mostly of regional economic competitiveness is economic growth and development, which is two different concepts. But you can have growth without development, but you will have development and they will always include growth. You will have employment, which is such a massive problem on a global scale, and also in South Africa, where the youth is like 60-70% unemployed. It is a growing problem that we need to resolve. And then also rising income levels. It's an outcome, it's a product of well-designed competitiveness. Also increased investment is very important for development because it is the driver in terms of economics. You need more investment for more output. And we've seen in South Africa, for example, we've got an investment strike because of poor government policy implementation at the moment. Even big international companies leaving the country because of this poor policy formulation and policy implementation, policy uncertainty. And then lastly, business growth. It's the pull factors that it's the drivers, and then the outcomes is what is our end product, more business development. And business as we know, even small business drives the economy to much higher levels than before. Obviously, there's existing global indexes around already. In my analysis of the existing ones, it was clear to me that most of the current indexes are more on a national scale. For example, the World Economic Forum Global Competitiveness Index is national level. There's no data, mostly data on that index on a local and regional level. Going down to municipal level, for example, you will not find the data sets there. There is a regional European competitiveness index, but it's more for European data, which is not available in other areas of the world. So the data is not available on a global scale. And then there's one in the USA, regional index. Also data availability not so good. And then we've got OECD, it's got a regional well-being index, which is also only mostly of the OECD countries. And then the Brookings Metro Monitor, which is a US-based huge city monitor that's on the go. And then lastly, the Institute for Management Development, which IMD, which is very good with their data sets, but mostly also national level, and it's not so useful. So the gap there is that we need something that we can have for everybody. It's including the African countries, Asia, South America, Middle East. So anywhere it should be applicable and useful. So the research methodology is very simplified, which I've explained here now. It is quantitative, but includes some limited gaps for qualitative methods to make sure that the data that we have got are tested and it's real. Sometimes the surveys that's available cannot all be trusted. And then to determine, we have got theoretical foundations. It's Porter, it's Peru, it is Krugman. There's many theoretical foundations for this type of work. And then to identify the next step, identify and differentiate between the drivers, the factors, and the outcomes. You can mix this up and your result will not be good. Some of these indexes has got outcomes as factors or drivers, and it shouldn't be like that. The drivers, the factors should be based on objectivity. So it must be real data that could be used, raw data that could be used. The data availability is very important, as well as the ease of use. It must be a simple process to compile a rapid competitiveness index. Transformation of the raw data into index values, I call it indexification of all of the raw data. You can use various methods. I cannot go into details, but baselines and logarithms we use to get raw data into indexes. And then allocation of weights by asking international experts on development economics about which one is more important if we look at factors that drives competitiveness. And then the development of sub-indexes and aggregate composite index and classification of regions as highly competitive, medium or low. That is a classification system that's been included. So these are the factors and the pillars based on that methodology that is useful. There is data available. In some cases, we'll have some local data sources, some verification by a small survey in some instances, but I've developed it with six pillars. So the main ones is governance. So if you've got good governance in a region, you will have a competitive region. Good business development. You've got labor and well-developed talent in your region. It will be good. Your economic structure in terms of the size, the diversification, the use of economic-based sectors, as well as location, content, the specialization in a region, and then also the export index, how well it's developed in terms of diversification. Technology, obviously, is one of those things that we need as a driver, a main theme. And then use of natural resources, the sustainable use of natural resources, very important for a sustainable region. So these are the main pillars that the whole index is built on, and these are my drivers within each of them. So you can see it's not in order of importance, but governance is really, really important. If you've got poor quality of policies and legislation, you will struggle. If there's no infrastructure, there will be a massive problem. If there's no good enabling environment for business to prosper, there's a problem. If there's huge crime situation, there will be a big problem. High tax rates, you will have a massive problem. Business availability, so the networking between businesses, cluster development, very important. Productivity and entrepreneurship development. We have got a lot of data on this, specifically through the GEM data series. We also drive it from South Africa, and included in the new data is also the enabling environment test. So we've got all the big cities in the world included in that survey now. We can use that. Talent, you know, it's so important. The skilled labor force population that is employed will drive productivity. And then the economics, as I've already explained, diversification, and then the natural resources, sustainability. Nobody invest in a dirty environment. So this is really important for me, this last one also. And then we're going to weigh all of these variables, and then we're going to build up the first test in South Africa, and I want to also test it in Lithuania, because I've promised many times to do Lithuanian study. Now is the time to do it. Conclusions. Competitiveness has been used for decades within the economic development environment, so it's nothing new, but now it needs to have a relook, and I've tried to have a relook at it. The existing of leading and lagging regions is proof of the different levels of competitiveness. There's always going to be leading and lagging regions, but how to manage and develop these lagging regions, doing a competitiveness analysis through this index. The use of indexes makes comparisons so easy and possible, and it's possible to do it rapidly also. Using this amended and simplified index that could be used across the globe will allow for identification of strengths and weaknesses in a region, which will lead to strategy development that is based on facts and figures, and that makes it much easier for a comprehensive strategy. Thank you. It's 100% 20 minutes gone. I appreciate the time. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I'm going to stop sharing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We will proceed with some questions from the audience, maybe in the discussion part, because the time is running, but we really appreciate your participation. And now I would like to ask my colleague to present the next presenter in this session.
The next presenter, Dr. PhD Tomasz Stolarczyk, the Library of Lodz University, Poland, and its topic, former monastic libraries from the area of the current Lodz Voivodeship in historical and bibliological research.
So, dear Tomasz, the floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I'd like to thank you very much for inviting me to this conference. So, in my presentation, I intended to present and discuss and outline, of course, because of limited time, the most important works about the past monastic book collections, especially Dominican, especially from current Łódź Voivodeship, but not only, which were prepared by Polish libraries and scientific institutions and others, researchers and authors. The Łódź Voivodeship is located in central Poland. In the 8th century, there were about 30 monasteries in its current area, the area of the former Łęczyca, Sieradz and Rawa voivodeships. They belonged to the Dominicans, Franciscans, Jesuits, Piarists, Cistercians, Carmelites, Augustinians, Missionaries, Premonstratensians and Holy Sepulchres. So let's deal with the Dominican first. According to Irena Szostek, every school, in order to perform teaching and educational functions, must have a library as a research base and a workshop. Krystyna Zawadzka agrees with her, claiming that the education of monks, as well as the performance of their priestly duties, sermons, confessions, celebrating Mass, were linked with books. The Dominican General Chapter of Rome in 1569 even ordered that each monastery should have its own library. There were as many monastic libraries as there were monasteries. For 40 years, the number of contributions, sketches, chapters, and monographs on the conventual libraries of Polish brothers preachers and their collections has been increasing year by year. In 1973, above mentioned Krystyna Zawadzka published an article in Nasza Przeszłość devoted to the sources for the history of Dominican libraries in Poland and the current state of research on their history. Depending on the type of material proving the existence of a given book collections, the author divided these libraries into 5 groups. The first, libraries with inventories or catalogues, some books and references in literature. The second, libraries with inventories or catalogues and possible references in the literature. The third, libraries with books and possibly references in literature. The fourth, libraries with mentions in the literature. And the fifth, libraries the existence of which can be inferred from the Dominican customs. In 1997, Małgorzata Borkowska described the libraries of Dominican monasteries in Góra Kalwaria. In 2002, Andrzej Potocki presented the place of the library in Dominican study. In 2003, Tomasz Makowski prepared an inventory of Dominican manuscripts in the collections of the National Library in Warsaw. In 2009, Tomasz Moskal presented homiletical works by Dominican preachers in the 18th century parish libraries of the Archdeaconry of Sandomierz. And in 2012, Marek Miławicki published an article in Hereditas Monasteriorum about inventories and lists of libraries of Dominican monasteries dissolved in the western provinces of the Russian Empire in 19th century. Province Silesia. Dominican libraries in Silesia have been comprehensively studied. In 1974, the above-mentioned Krystyna Zawadzka published an article about these libraries in the year 1226, 1810. Exactly a quarter of a century later, Krystyna Zawadzka prepared a collective monograph of these libraries in Bolesławiec, Brzeg, Cieszyn, Głogów, Krosno Odrzańskie, Legnica, Lewin Brzeski, Nysa, Opole, Oświęcim, Racibórz, Świdnica, and Ząbkowice Śląskie. In addition to the presenting the book collections of the above mentioned convents, the author presented in her work the current state of research, sources and methods, Dominican library legislation, language, Polonica and publishing provenance of these books collections and their general characteristics, as well as the problem of readership among the Silesian Brethren preachers, and compared Silesian library with other Dominican libraries in the Polish province. In 2008, Anna Pobuk-Lenartowicz presented an article on the reception of Peregrine of Opoles sermons in Silesian monasteries in the light of preserved library collections. So let's deal with the development of individual Dominican libraries. In 1975, above mentioned Krystyna Zawadzka published an extensive article on the library of the Dominican monastery in Wrocław. The author, relying primarily on the handwritten library inventories on the Wrocław convent, currently located in the library of the University of Wrocław, recreated both the medieval and Renaissance, and Baroque and Enlightenment, the book collections on the local Brethren preachers. The 18th century library of the Lviv Dominicans has also been described. Irena Szoster recreated her book collection based on the catalogue from 1776. The author also translated the Dominican regulation regarding books, book collections of the local Brethren preachers. So, the author also translated the Dominican regulation regarding books and the libraries developed by Humbert de Romans. Humbert de Romans. Both works were devoted to the library and book collection of Brethren preachers in Krakow. In 1966, Robert Świętochowski presented the history of this library. Historian Maciej Zdanek also devoted part of his work on Dominican schools and studies in Krakow to the library and its collections. Krzysztof Orzuk wrote about the participation of the Krakow Dominicans in the productions of books in the Middle Ages and their monastery as a center for collecting books. In 2003, Iwona Pieczkiewicz presented the situation of the Krakow Library in the years 1795-1815. In 2007, Monika Mydel and Żaneta Kubitz prepared a catalogue of old print works of Saint Thomas Aquinas and their commentaries located to the collections of the Dominican Studies Library in Krakow. In 2010, Tomasz Gałuszka presented the latest findings regarding the preserved 14th century book collection of the Krakow Brethren preachers. In 2004, Adam Schott described the library of brothers preachers in Różany Stok in Podlasie. Another Dominican library from this area, namely in Choroszcz, was presented in 2009 by Katarzyna Zimoch. In 2009, I published an article devoted to the Library of Dominican Convent in Łęczyca, nearby Łódź, and its book collection in the early 17th century. In the same year, published the two mentioned inventories. 2 years later, I wrote an article devoted to the Dominican education in Łęczyca and the use of books from the monastery library to teach in the schools of local Brethren preachers. In 2010, in the journal Acta Universitatis Lodzensis, Folia Librorum, I described in a short outline, based on preserved Latin library inventories, the book collections of Dominican monasteries in the 17th century, existing in the area of the former Archdeaconry of Łęczyca, in Gidla, Łęczyca, Łowicz, Piotrków Trybunalski, and Sieradz. I have prepared two short syntheses on these book collections, currently awaiting. The first four of them will be a supplement to my article from 2010, because I base it not only on the above-mentioned inventories, but also on those preserved in several Polish libraries, namely in the Library of the University of Warsaw, the National Library, and the Library of the Philosophical and Theological College of Dominicans in Krakow, the Library of the Theological Seminary in Wrocław, the District Museum in Sieradz, the Ursuline Convent in Sieradz, and the Parish Library in Topola Królewska, nearby Łęczyca, collections of post-Dominican books. The second article will concern the role of books in the role of books and libraries in the life of the Brethren preachers, the above-mentioned monastery. In 2012, I published an article in this, about theological books and collections of sermons in the Library of Dominicans in Łowicz. I did this not only on the basis of the already mentioned libraries inventories, but also on the basis of those preserved in those in Polish libraries. About Dominican book collections from Łowicz, their post-dissolution fate, wrote also Mariana Czapnik in 2014. In 2016, in my book titled Analecta Dominiciana, I described Dominican libraries from central Poland from 17th century. The former library of Brethren Preachers in Torun was also described. This was done by Wiesława Kwiatkowska, who in her article published in 1996 in Studies on the History of Citizen Bourgeoisie in the Middle Ages, carefully analyzed the content of the monastery's book collection. So let's deal with Pauline libraries from Central Poland. In 2013, Jacek Szpak described in outline Polish Pauline libraries in 18th century. Next year, Edgar Sukiennik dedicated his article to the library of the Pauline monks from Oporów. Next year, Pauline Jarosław Wuniewski described book collections of Jasna Góra Monastery. The same author, in his article from 2015, dedicated to the dissolution of the Pauline monasteries in Poland, Germany, Austria, and Hungary, presented the impact of suppression on conventual libraries. In 2020, Mariana Czapnik published her article among others about books from the dissolved monastery in Wielgomłyny, which are currently kept in the University Library in Warsaw. In the years 2019-2023, I published a series of articles devoted to the book collections of the Pauline monks of Wieluń and Wielgomłyny. In 2021, I edited the source materials of 14 library inventories from the Pauline monastery in Wieluń from 18th century. A year before, I published inventory of medical books from Wieluń from 1850. So deal with Bernardines, Franciscans of the strict observance libraries from Central Poland. About Bernardine book collections from Łowicz and their post-dissolution, fate wrote also Mariana Czapnik in 2014. The same author published in 2017 her article about Rafał Borowicz, Polish Bernardine from Łowicz, librarian and chronicle of the Bernardine order. In 2018, I described the sources for history, among others Bernardine libraries. 2 years later, I wrote an article about Bernardine book collection from Monastery Łęczyce. Okay, so let's deal with Piary's libraries in Central Poland. In 2016, I described historical works that were in the library of the Piary's College in Wieluń in the light of inventories from 1809 and 1821. In the same year, I wrote one article about books used to learn the following languages: Polish, French, German, and Latin, and the Piarist Faculty School in Łowicz in the light of library inventories from 1870. 2 years later, I dedicated my work to the library of the above-mentioned Piarist Faculty School in Łowicz in the light of the catalog from 1870. In current year, I published one article about old prints from the Baza era in the collections of the Piarist Library in Wieluń, and one article about theological works in the Piarist Library of the Wieluń College in the light of the library catalog from 1809. So let's deal with Carmelit's libraries from Central Poland. In 2012, Bartłomiej Grzanka published the inventory, included a list of books from the monastery library of the monastery of Carmelite Fathers in Kłodawa, nearby Łęczyca, from 1709. And Carmelite's library from Krakow. In 2014, Szymon Sulecki wrote the book about Karmelitz Library in Krakow. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tomasz Stolarczyk, for your presentation and your deep analysis in monastic libraries and their resources, which especially about those libraries which are situated in the region of current Lodz Voivodeship. And now I would like to ask my colleague to present the next presenter, which is seen already online in the screen.
The next presenter would be Dr. Ieva Pīgozne. It's the Institute of Latvian History, University of Latvia, and the topic is researching the public in the Soviet period, the work of Latvian ethnographers.
First of all, I would like to thank the organizer, Regina Kvašytė, for inviting me to present in the plenary session of this conference. It's a great honor. So my topic is something a little bit different because right now I am working in a scientific project, research project that is hosted by the Institute of Latvian History at the University of Latvia and the Art Academy of Latvia, and it has just started. So this is going to be a progress report, and probably in 2 years I'm going to present something that I have done, like a thorough research already. The project that we have is Ethnographers, Society and Art, Symbiosis of Ethnology and Art and Discourse of the Soviet Colonialism in Latvia. So what is the main objective of this research project is that we are reassessing and re-evaluating the work of the previous generations of ethnographers during the Soviet time. And my particular task is to concentrate on how did the ethnographers disseminate their knowledge, how did they reach the public, the general public, and also other professionals, and not to forget about the aspect of colonialism. And as I mentioned, this is the progress report, so I'm going to focus on one aspect of this work, and it is on the expeditions and their results and how the ethnographers try to reach the public with their results. So the scope of the research is mainly the Soviet period, and as we can see that the first occupation of Latvia from 1940 is included, but the main bunch of time, of course, is from 1944 to 1990. And what I have done so far is I have looked through the documentation of the 1950s, 60s, and started the 1970s, have not come yet to the 1980s. The focus of the project is to focus on the ethnographers who worked at the Department of Ethnography, Institute of History, Academy of Sciences. So that means those ethnographers who, most of them had doctoral degrees. Their only work was to focus on gathering material and research, and they all worked at this building, Academy of Sciences. There were, of course, ethnographers during the Soviet period who worked at the Ethnographic Open Air Museum of Latvia and at the State History Museum, Department of Ethnography. And throughout the Soviet period, there was at least one faculty member who worked also at the Faculty of Philosophy and History at the University of Latvia. But we have decided that we are going to focus on the first ones, and if we have time left, so we can look at other colleagues who also worked in this area. So the sources that we use are all kinds of documentation of the work, that is stored at the National Archives of Latvia and a repository of ethnographic material. And that is our own repository of the Institute of Latvian History, so that is our disposal. And for example, what kind of materials we have there? It's like diaries and reports of the expedition leaders. It is also the lists of invited people and attendees of the conferences and exhibitions that were organized. And simultaneously, I have to say that the representativity of these materials is very uneven, because many of them are missing. There are some years where we have all kinds of information that is still kept. And that means that probably the leaders of the expedition were a little bit obsessed with keeping all their notes and everything. But otherwise, there are years where we have much less, and some years where we don't have almost anything to document the activities. Of course, there were also publications in media, in the newspapers, in the magazines, and in some calendars that were coming out every year. And of course, scientific publications that were becoming more and more during the Soviet period. Of course, there were less right after the occupation, but they were becoming more active after some time. So there are two main types of activities that we can see that the ethnographers are mainly concentrating on during their work, especially in the 1950s and 60s. That is gathering material, and that is done by organizing ethnographic expeditions every year. At least some 15 to 20 and sometimes even more people take part there, and the expeditions last for several weeks. So that is a huge amount of expedition hours that is spent, and we can only dream of that today. So the work started every year with picking the destinations, deciding where to go. There were usually more than one place they went during the summer, and they pointed out the leader of the expedition who had to organize all the preparation works, so making all the arrangements. And that included all kinds of communication with local schools, museums, militia or the police, and so on and so on. So this started already in February, usually, and the expeditions took place sometime between June and August. So then they went for the expeditions, carried out their field work, and then after that, in September, sometimes also in October, they were working on the gathered materials and submitting them to the repository of the ethnographic material, and discussing the results of the fieldwork was usually taking place in the end of the year, some December or something like that. So after that, starting with the 1960s, they also had these big conferences organized to report on their findings, on their research, and that took place in May the following year. So the leader of the expedition was so busy that they couldn't have the same leader every year. So every year another person had to be the expedition leader. So the presented research results, of course, were through these conferences, so-called scientific sessions, and through the publications. It is interesting to see that in the documentation of every year when they decide where the expedition is going to take place. They say that the publications need to be published next year. And if we follow, so we can see that the publications are usually published 1, 2, or even 3, and sometimes even more years after. So it's not like they were really capable to do that, but they still sort of had a plan to do that. And of course, other types of dissemination that I'm going to talk also about. So during the expeditions till 1959, they took place like in the regions and never in the capital area. They usually were somewhere quite remote. And the scientific sessions containing reports and presentations took place in the regions of the expedition. So, for example, if they went to a very far away place, that's where the scientific session was taking place. But since 1959, it seems that the decision was made in Moscow. And these scientific sessions were moved to Riga, and they took place the following year in Riga, the following spring. So during the expeditions, what is really interesting is that the ethnographers who went to the homes of people and who interviewed them, they also gathered artifacts and asked people to donate these artifacts for an exhibition. And the exhibitions took place usually for some time, not only one day when the scientific session was. And as we can see in the picture, that's a very rare picture from such an exhibition. So the local people gave what the ethnographers consider to be valuable items, and they could be something that was crafted at home from the 19th century and also till the time when expeditions took place. What is very interesting is that from one of such exhibitions we also have a list of attendees, and it shows that more than 400 people, local people, attended this exhibition. Of course, there are many children that are taken from schools, but at the same time, very many local workers, local people who are interested in local history, and so on. So these exhibitions really reached quite a lot of people in the regions. Also, in all the reports of the expeditions, I can read that the ethnographers were carrying out consultations. They were giving consultations to local history researchers and to local museums on how to collect ethnographic materials, on what to do with this material, and so on. At the same time, I have not seen any, almost never seen any names that are mentioned that, for example, this and that person got their consultation. So I'm a little bit suspicious. So maybe these consultations didn't take place. They were only on paper. But I have seen a couple of names mentioned, so maybe it did. This is something I still need to find out. So now, just a couple of examples from how the things were going on. So here I have a case of the expedition of 1956 in Gulbene region. It was led by ethnographer Miroslava, and she already made, and I'm going to focus on this reaching the public, not what they were collecting information. During the preparation stage, there were 4 announcements on the radio. And the radio, of course, was only national, so there were no regional radios at the Soviet time. 6 publications in national and local newspapers. And there was only one person responsible for them, so all these publications were written by Salvedis Cimermanis, an ethnographer, whose task it was. Scientific session took place during the expedition after some 10 days after it had started, and there were 3 presentations. So one on local history prepared for the local people, one of the results of the expedition prepared by the leader of the expedition, and one that was by the local culture official who just reported on how the cultural activities took place in their region. We also have a list of attendees, and we can see that 80 local people participated. And what is also emphasized is that among these people there were also 2 communist fighters from 1990. That was considered to be important. The exhibition also took place. It contained more than 200 exhibited items. So they were locally crafted textiles and basketry, mainly from these 2 types of crafts. And they represented the 19th and 20th century items from the families of the region. And the report of the expedition leader also contains complaints, and these are quite interesting because they reveal that about 50 posters were distributed, and we can see also the poster. The poster is still kept in the repository. This is how it looks. But these posters were published too late. So they were probably only distributed just several days before the event, and they didn't get the expected outcome. No printed invitations were printed, so the leader complains that if they were, they would have had more people attending. And also complaining that the director and other main officials of the institute did not consider to be important enough to attend this event. So this is some interesting inside information that helps to understand the whole situation, how it was. So as I said already, since 1960s, these scientific conferences were organized in Riga the following spring. And some years are so lucky that we have the list of also invited people and those who attended. And it is interesting to see that they are not the same people. We can see that from the documentation that this is the type of invitation. They were published in Latvian and Russian, and they were 500 copies of them, and they were sent out to all kinds of officials, media, newspapers, so there were museums, leaders of the museums, university faculties, also all the institutes who took part in the expeditions, and many other people. But when we see at who attended, we can see that most of the officials did not attend, and some people who attended almost every year were still not included in the lists. And one of such people is Adolfs Karnops. He is a person who was working at the National History Museum before the Second World War, and he was sent to Siberia. After coming home, apparently he was not welcome, and the official invitation was not sent to him. So this is a little bit about the consulting, where I have found evidence that the ethnographers of the Institute really consulted someone. It is, for example, a letter asking for consultations on song and dance festivals. Also, representatives were members of the scientific committees of advisory boards of the museums. And of course, there were some publications in media, especially on the topic of folk costumes. They were very welcome. And as we can see, colonialism and Sovietization can be felt on every step. There are 3 examples here. One is the instructions that they were instructed in Russian. There were huge instructions coming from Moscow, and obviously the ethnographers had to follow, and some, especially in 1950s, some questions that they were asked to ask the people whom they interviewed really remind of KGB methods, because, for example, people were asked to interview people about what kind of literature that was published before the Second World War they were still reading, and to report on that, of course. Another example is 1965, when the Soviet Latvia celebrated its 25 years anniversary, of course, the Soviet style, and there were 2 scientific conferences organized, and one of them was devoted exclusively to the Soviet traditions. And another one example is that there were ethnographers whose ethnicity was Russian, whose spoken language was Russian, and they could work, interview people, present their articles, publish their publications in Russian, and that was okay. So nobody was asked to learn the local language, even if they were working with the local people. So I'm sorry I've taken a little bit more time, but I just have to conclude that, however, all presented papers and publications of the ethnographers had to undergo a thorough control. It can be argued that even without the luxury of the internet and social media, the ethnographers reached the public quite successfully. And I'm going to do more research, so maybe I will report again in a couple of years. Please follow our project's Facebook page, as we have this luxury of informing the people about what we do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, dear Eva. Your presentation was perfect, and it's a luxury for us to hear you today. So if you can please stay for the discussion part, maybe we will have some questions in the room. And now I would like to ask my colleague to present the last but not the least presenter of our plenary session.
Associated Professor Dr. Regina Kvašytė, Vilnius University Šiauliai Academy, and her topic is Dictionaries of Lithuanian and Latvian Onomastics.
Topic comparative research about these dictionaries. One of the forms of dissemination of onomastic research carried out in Lithuania and Latvia, as well as in other countries of the world, is the publication of various dictionaries. Dictionaries of onomastics as special dictionaries in the field of linguistics are not homogeneous whole. It can be said that there are areas of onomastics that are of interest to scholars of both languages, but the publication of specific dictionaries as well as their structure and scope differ. The report discussed dictionaries of personal and place names that were published in both countries at the beginning of the 20th century. Similarities and differences between the research objects are explored, as well as the presentation of onyms in different lexicographic sources is investigated. In addition, it is important to note that dictionaries often start from different types of work. They may be the file compiled not necessarily by scientists, linguists, onomasticians, larger or smaller corpuses of proper names, manual appendixes published in monographs, and so on. This is typical of the practice of both countries. So each thematic group also pays attention to more important sources. First, about dictionaries of personal names, surnames, nicknames. Both Lithuanian and Latvian have dictionaries of names. In Lithuania, the Dictionary of the Origin of Lithuanian Names by Kazys Kuzavinis and Bronius Savukynas, which included traditional names, is intended for the public. The first version of his etymological dictionary was published in the book Vardai ir žodžiai, Names and Words, in 1971. And appeared as a separate publication in 1987. It has been published repeatedly, more than one. You can see cover of second edition in 1994, because it has been the only comprehensive sources for personal names for a long time. It can be noted that Latvian publication is also included in the list of used literature. Books from Ernest Blesse, a study of Latvian personal names from 1929. Now, a lot of data can be found in Zigmas Zinkevičius monograph Lietuvių asmenvardžiai, Lithuanian personal names from 2008, which contain various collections, personal names, nicknames that perform the function of a dictionary, as well as an index of personal names. The Dictionary of Names in Latvia was published in 1990. Klaus Siliņš, Latviešu personvārdu vārnīca, Latvian Dictionary of Personal Names. It contains about 8,000 names. It is possible to find not only personal names and their variants, diminutive forms, etymology of personal names, but also information on when the name was first registered, when it first appeared in the calendar, and so on. Among the sources and literature used by the author, not a professional linguist but an enthusiast in this field, are the Lietuvių pavardžių žodynas, Dictionary of Lithuanian Surnames, the Lietuvių vardų etymologinis žodynas, Etymological Dictionary of Lithuanian Names, published in 1971, and Zinkevičius Lietuvių anthroponymia, Lithuanian anthroponymy, and others. It should also be said that in general, this layer of proper names, personal names, is very popular. Quite many different corpora of names were published, but not all of them can be considered as onomastic dictionaries, though the present research did not focus on them. Other type of dictionaries of personal names are dictionaries of surnames. In Latvia, before the war, there were publications for the spelling of surnames, and surnames were included in the general spelling dictionaries. Ansītes, kur celts latviešu pareizrakstība, latviešu pareizrakstības likumi, uzvārdu pareizrakstība. In English, Latvian spelling rules and spelling of surnames, published in 1936, and other sources. During the Soviet era, a reverse dictionary of Latvian surnames prepared by Moscow-based linguist Veltes Taltmane was available. This is the appendix of her monograph, velta Staltmana latviškai antroponimija familija. Latvian anthroponyms surnames in 1981 containing approximately 20,000 surnames. In 1985 and 1989, 2 volumes of the Dictionary of Lithuanian Surnames, Lietuvių pavardžių žodynas, you can see this cover of this dictionary, were published. This is a relatively complete etymological dictionary of current Lithuanian surnames. It contains data of the prevalence, frequency, origin, and variance of surnames. Sources from other languages, including Latvian, were useful in explaining the origin. The same Blesses study of Latvian personal names by the monograph by Velta Staltmane, etc. Authors Aleksandras Vanagas, Vitalija Macijauskienė, and Marīte Razmukaite were awarded the Science Prize of the Republic of Lithuania in 1993 for this dictionary. It should be mentioned that the Dictionary of Lithuanian Surnames is now available on the internet. You can see this address. Recently, interest in surnames in Latvia has become more intensive. Based on the data of the archives, dictionaries of surnames were compiled on the regional basis. In 2017, the Dictionary of Surnames of Latgale appeared, and in 2019, the Dictionary of Surnames of Kurzeme, Zemgale, and Sēlija, and in year of 2022, surnames of Central and North Latvia, Vidzeme, was published. You can see to this dictionaries, and the same is the newest dictionary, the place names of Vidzeme. Pay attention that in this slide to stylized contour of regions. Compare the map of Latvia, and you can see this part from Latvia, this surnames from this part. Demograph Ilmārs Mešs is the author of the first volume. The second volume was prepared by him in cooperation with linguists Anna Stafetska and Renāte Siliņa-Pinke, and geographer Otīlija Kavalevska. And third volume from Vidzeme, authors is Ilmārs Mešs, Ilga Irēna Jansone, Otīlija Kavalevska, and Sanda Rapa. And you can see this internet address. Dictionaries are available at the internet too. There are also such personal names, the lexicographic organization of which it is interest only in one of the countries. For example, the Dictionary of Nicknames published in Lithuania. Alvydas Butkus, Lietuvių pravardes, Lithuanian nicknames, in 1995. It is both a monograph and a dictionary with approximately 22,500 nicknames of villagers. The author also used Latvian literature. In Onomastic lexicography, dictionaries of place names play an important role. In Lithuania, a lot of attention was paid to various types of place names. A dictionary of river and lake names compiled by the team of authors comprising approximately 10,000 hydronyms. This dictionary is published in 1963, and etymological dictionary of hydronyms 1981, and the dictionary of city names 1996, prepared by Aleksandras Vanagas, most important Lithuanian onomasticians. In 2002, a dictionary of place names for language practice was published. It consists in about 20,000 names of settlements, proper names of bodies of water, forest, wetlands and peatland, highlands, mountains, and other names of surface elements. An online resource 2007 based on this dictionary is available in internet too. Vietovardžiai LKI LT. Lithuanian traditional place names on the territory of Belarus, Kaliningrad region, Latvia and Poland 2002 have also attracted the attention of onomasticians. The dictionary includes historically traditional place names and Lithuanian forms of ethnic place names approved by the State Commission of the Lithuanian language. In addition, a separate dictionary, vietovardžių kirčiavimo žodynas, dictionary of accentuation of place names, 1994, has been published in Lithuania, as the Lithuanian language is characterized by inconsistent accent. Therefore, it is important to know to accurately accentuate place names of various grammatical structures. The dictionary contains 4,000 standardized place name forms. In 2008, researchers of the Department of Onomastics of the Institute of Lithuanian Language published the first volume of the Lithuanian Dictionary of Place Names, Lietuvos vietovardžių žodynas. So far, 3 volumes have been published, from the letter A to in 2008, in 2010, and 2018. The dictionary is based on the file of place names, which include 700,000 place names, of which 11,000 are hydronyms, 30,000 are oikonyms and other place names, as well as 300,000 historical toponyms. The beginning of the Dictionary of Lithuanian Place Names date back to the late 19th century and early 20th century. The contribution of Kazimieras Būga, the pioneer of academic dictionary of the Lithuanian language, was especially significant. Among the onomasticians mentioned should be made of Aleksandras Vanagas, who made a significant contribution to the multi-volume vocabulary through the study of hydronyms and other place names. It is planned there will about 10 volumes in total. This thesaurus-type dictionary is a scientific normative collection of toponyms which contain place names of living language and explains their etymology. The beginning of the preparation of the Dictionary of Latvian place names can also be considered in the late 19th century and early 20th century, when several significant publications and onomastics data collection appeared. Augusts Bielensteins, Die Grenzen des Latvischen Volksstammes and der Latvische Sprache in der Gegenwart und im 13. Jahrhundert. In English, it's the boundaries of the Latvian tribe in language in the present and in the 13th century. Published in St. Petersburg, 1892. And Jānis Enzelins, Latvian place names, Latvijas vietu vārdi, 2 parts of this dictionary, published in Riga in 1922 and 1925. And other. And you can see on the slide this publishing of the Dictionary of Latvian place names in Latvia. It was renewed in the 21st century. In 2003, a continuation of the Dictionary of place names of the Latvian SA, Latvijas PSR vietvārdi, started by Jānis Enzelins, appeared. It was a full-type dictionary of place names with etymological comments. Its scope is approximately 1.25 million toponymic units. To date, 5 volumes has been published containing materials from place names which from this place names. And it is all my presentation today. Thank you.
So we have reached the final presentation. Thank you once more, Dr. Regina, for your interesting insights on dictionaries. And now we are coming to the discussion part. As some of you might have some questions here in the room, as well as those who are participating online. So if you have any of them, please raise your hand. My colleague will help with the microphone that everybody in the room and online could hear us. And maybe it's already some hot questions. Maybe somebody would like already to ask something. A lot of smiles, but no answer at this moment. So maybe if you let me, I could ask Dr. Ieva from Institute of Latvian History. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was a very interesting one, and we would like to know more about those expeditions you already mentioned. You mentioned that we should be jealous about the time spent in expeditions. So maybe you could disclose how long those expeditions took for ethnographers in Latvia in this period.
Thank you. Why I said that we can be jealous is because that today, if we organize an ethnographic expedition, it is maybe a week, and maybe 2 to 5 people participate. In the Soviet period, as I said, there were many expeditions where there were about 20 participants, sometimes close to 30. Not all of them were professional ethnographers. Some of them were students, some of them were architects, some of them were artists who were there to help with the documentation. They were photographing, they were drawing, and they were just used as helping personnel. At the same time, the time of the expeditions, first they went in the preparatory stage to this region, and that took about 3 to 5 days. usually they already went around the region and discovered who are the most important informants that they need to talk to. And after the expedition arrived, then they spent about 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks in the area. And if we can imagine that 30 people for three weeks are collecting material, that is really huge.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And did you find some tendencies? Which regions were mostly visited by expeditions? Maybe you have already some insights from the 60s or 50s.
Well, thank you. I was thinking of that I should make a overview. I have not done that yet, but I have a feeling that they really tried to cover all the territory. Some of the main focuses were on the most distant areas. So, for example, Latgale, the eastern Latvia, or Sēlija, southeastern Latvia, far places in Kurzeme, far places in the bordering regions with Estonia. Those were they focusing most on. But of course, there were places that were closer as well, like Jelgava, for example, region.
Thank you so much. I'm looking to the audience. Maybe we have some questions up there.
Thank you very much. I have one question regarding Lithuanian and Latvian onomastics, because it was interesting to know how both countries are have pushed their task during Soviet period for the onomastic dictionaries and after regaining independence. My question would be, considering maybe interwar period, maybe there were some initiatives why such dictionaries were not published, because it was mostly considered some heteronyms, urban names, maybe some experiments of surnames, and just when it was important to start this monastic studies in Latvia and Lithuania. The second question would be regarding current situation, because we see that in Eastern Russian area we have a lot of Baltic origin names of rivers, of urban areas, and so on. So there are also discussions how we could recreate those names into our cartography. And on the other hand, what are the Latvian position about it, considering some neighboring areas like Abene or in Latvia, there are some names, of course, are lost because they are unfortunately not in the Latvian Republic territory right now. So maybe you could provide your insights regarding these two interesting questions.
Thank you for your questions. I think that these historical place names and maybe personal names is in Zigmas Zinkevičius and of course Aleksandras Vanagas research and monographs and sources explained. In Latvia, I have I wish that it is sources, books and small dictionaries from local place names from geographers, from geolingvistiskās telpas aģentūra. I don't. Geotelpiskās informācijas aģentūra, yeah. This from local parish, Zaubes pagasts, Krāslavas rajons, and more publications. So, yes. Yeah. This separate counties and parishes, but the dictionaries, but not only dictionaries. There's encyclopedia and local encyclopedia. And in Soviet period, you can see these sources. I talk about this only. More sources I don't know. Maybe in archives, maybe manuscripts or other sources, but I have this material not found.
Regina, one more question for you. It was really interesting to find out about the surnames and names as dictionaries. And we would like to know more about those books, if they provide just the list of it, or it is some explanations included about the origin of surnames or meanings about surnames. What is the type of this dictionary?
Yes, a part of dictionaries is with etymological and Latvian dictionaries of surnames is from archives documents from this region. Anna is one of the author of the.
Do we have any more questions for our presenters here in the room? Maybe we have still Professor Daniel Meyer online. I don't know if Daniel is still there. If you are a professor, maybe you could unmute yourself.
Yes, I'm still here, still alive.
Still alive. 12,000 kilometers far from Šiauliai, but still alive. Professor Meyer is the member of Researchers Excellence Network, and we are cooperating with him many years before, and it's really great to have him here in the conference. Professor, can I ask you a question? Because you presented so many indexes, what you provide for regional and local and national evaluation of competitiveness, entrepreneurship, development, and so on. Do you meet the same challenge like in the majority of cases of Lithuanian researchers? Because sometimes we lack access to the data of regional level. Do you meet the same challenge while you are doing your research, or you had access to some databases which allow you to do it very easily?
Yes, it's important questions. Thanks, Prof. Vita. I am lucky in some instances that I can buy any database that's not open access. So we buy a lot of data at the university. So that's very important for us. For example, there's a database, International Country Risk Index, which gives monthly updates on all countries in the world on about 50 different variables. That they also do their own surveys, but also like World Bank, IMF data, OECD data, so there's a lot of information on there. But on a local level in South Africa, we've got a very wonderful database of all socioeconomic data that comes out annually, and it's updated up to 2023. So what I've done is I've looked at our local data sets. I've also looked at the US, I've looked at the European Union, to see which data is available before I proceed with my index. So my indexes which I've done is based on South African, US and European data sets that's available. So there is sometimes a problem. Let's say, for example, good governance on a municipal level. It's not available, but it's available on national level. So what I've done is I calculated myself through a few interviews and observations that is one of our measurement tools, the enabling environment. You can do it by observations and like a quick roundtable discussion. It will take 2 or 3 hours to determine the level of good governance. So there's ways to get around it, but not all data is available. But for my situation, I'm very happy to say that this new index is based on data that's mostly available, with some limited surveys and observations that I will do in that process.
Thank you so much, Professor. The last call for any questions from the audience. I would really like to ask my colleague Rytis to join me to the end of this conference, because not the conference, sorry, the plenary session of the conference. So this is the main thing I should mention. So it was really interesting to listen to very different topics we analyzed today, but all of them are merged by regional problematic. And it's really nice to see you all here in the room as well as online, sharing those insights with us. So, Rite, I think that we had a wonderful plenary session today. Thank you all for being here in the room. And maybe you would like to wish something for our participants.
Yeah, thank you very much for discussions, for interesting discussions, interesting presentations, and I hope we'll meet later.
Yes, for sure. Today, tomorrow, and of course next year, because it's the tradition. We cannot skip it.